Alright, we should be live.
Is the mic on?
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
Do a little test.
Alright. Are you in the thing? Can you hear me okay, or?
It's probably like connecting.
Probably.
Nope.
Okay, cool. I think it's working.
Okay. Yeah, the delay is about like 5 seconds.
Alright.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our workshop on UV unwrapping and Substance Painter. I am Dante. If you don't know me already, I'm a fourth year game design student at Brock, and I'm here with Ben Cohan.
Hi, I'll be coming in a little bit later, but Dante's got the floor for the first half.
All right, so today I'll be talking to everyone about UV unwrapping. First of all, we're going to do a little bit of setup. One thing I like to do is to get my hotkeys straight. So, assuming that you're using 3ds Max, I believe Blender also has hotkeys for UV unwrapping as well. You can go to Customize Hotkey Editor, and there's two hotkeys that I really like to set up. The first one is Break by Sub-Object. I personally have this set to Control B because nothing else uses that. And this can be used in the Unwrap UVW group, so it won't interfere with actual modeling. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Ben. So just again, you can go to Customize Hotkey Editor and search Break by Sub-Object. I like to have this set to Control B. And then another one is Weld Selected Shared. I have this set to Control W. Now, we'll start here by explaining exactly what UV unwrapping is in case you don't know. A really good way to think about it is if you're ever a kid and made those paper boxes, it's kind of like this. You're basically taking a 3D object and you're unwrapping it onto a 2D surface by making different cuts and seams and then opening up that 3D object onto a flat surface. This is an example of how it can be done with a cube. And here's a familiar example of how we get world maps from the circular Earth. So I believe this is the Mercator projection. You can see how it would have been cut into these strips and then expanded in order to fill like a straight rectangular shape. One way that we visualize UV unwraps on a 3D object is through a UV checker. We'll see how this looks in 3ds Max pretty soon, but it looks something like this. You can download them off the internet. Doesn't really matter what they look like as long as it gives you a kind of visual representation of how your texture is unwrapping across the surface. So first of all, I'm going to do an overview of how to actually start unwrapping. So the way it works in 3ds Max is you work with the modifiers. The most useful one to use, you just search up unwrap, and it's this unwrap UVW modifier. Under the settings here, you'll see that it's quite similar to edit poly, editable poly, the regular modeling interface, but there are some key differences. You cannot move around your 3D objects and model in this view. You're only interacting with the seams and the faces of your UV unwrap. Here under selection, you're able to select your different vertices of the unwrap, the edges of your unwrap, and full faces of the unwrap, the same as you would select vertices, edges, and faces within Edit Poly. Just like Edit Poly, you can modify your selection by growing or shrinking it. As you can see, I clicked here and I could grow it, and it didn't get that other face because it's 2 faces away. If I press it again, then I have that selected. In the same vein, I can also shrink the selection as well, in case I select too many. One important thing to keep in mind when UV unwrapping, if you try to select everything, it'll only select what's visible. So if you go onto the other side of the cube, you'll see that none of the faces are selected. This is because you probably have this checked on by default, ignore back facing. So if I were to deselect this, it allows me to now select the entire cube and all the faces around it. I'll keep that checked on because it's useful sometimes. Other things that are pretty similar to Edit Poly, you can select by angle. So everything here is the same angle, but assuming that I had, well, like a nice chamfer to it. As such, I could then select by angle 15, and then it's selecting these edges. If I set that to 30 or more, it should now be selecting more. Looks like this is slightly different from editable poly, where it won't select contiguous faces. It only gets 45 degrees from the initial face, so it won't keep selecting over and over. And then it also works with smoothing groups as well. I can select by smoothing group, and I can enter in the smoothing group here. This is my second smoothing group, and it selects the entire thing. Usually I don't like to use these buttons because there are better buttons in the UV Unwrap interface. I'm just going to replace this. So now that we're decently acquainted with this selection interface, there's a secondary and more important interface known as the UV editor. If you press this button, it'll open on my second monitor, but I can drag it over here. It'll open how your unwrap actually looks like on the 2D texture. So this has a lot of different tools, some of which are the same as over here and some of which are different. Right now, I can go to the top right, and like I was saying earlier, I can turn on that checker pattern. I like this one, texture checker, UV checker. I just click on that, and it should load in. So now you can see how this is unwrapping on the surface. So instead of how this is, it's actually taking each face individually and stretching it across the entire texture. So if I were to draw a circle on this texture, I would see that circle on every single face here. Let's try recreating how this is unwrapped. So the first thing I like to do when UV unwrapping, I like to weld all of my seams together. Using the hotkeys before, this could be done in two ways. I can select vertices and press Control W, which is that hotkey I recommended earlier, and you can see that the green is turning white. What these colors mean is the green is areas where there are seams. So that's where each UV shell is separated into basically like a different part of the paper. I can keep selecting edges here and press Control W, and now everything is welded together and it looks really silly. There's another way of doing this. I'll just Control Z to go back to how it was before. You can go over to here and it is basically the same thing. You might have to turn up your threshold to max and then press Weld Selected Sub-Object after selecting everything. And everything is welded like before. So now that everything is welded, I can start thinking about how we're going to unwrap this. So first of all, I'm going to keep this as the one that is on the floor in this UV representation. And we're going to unwrap the top as it's connected to the side to be flapped out so it's too long, and then all of the other sides will be unwrapped down. So using the Control B hotkey, I can click and then press Control B to break these seams and start cutting it as if I had scissors. So this top flap can now unwrap completely. I just need to think about how this is going to unwrap. So I can make a seam here and a seam there. So the bottom looks like this, where it can go out on all sides, and then each side it can go down by 1 square, except for this top that goes down by 2 squares. Now, next what I want to do is I want to peel this unwrap. You can do this by switching to the polygon mode within the Edit UVW's interface. We'll just rectangular select everything here, and then you can see under peel, we have a few options here. The only one that really matters for our purposes is this rightmost button. What we're going to do first, just to make it simpler, if you have detach or pack on, I'd say just turn them off because it could lead to unexpected results. In the bottom, or in the right button here, it's called Reset Peel. Just click that, and you'll get something pretty close to how this unwrap looks, as you can see here, but it is quite tilted. What you can do now, under reshape elements, this is pretty useful when you have a pretty boxy item or you have one long strip. You can press straighten selection here, and as you can see, it led to some bad results. So let's figure out how we can actually fix this. First, let's go to our vertex selection here within Edit UVWs. Right now we have everything selected, so we'll just click out of this, and now you see we don't have any red vertices. We can select all these left vertices with our box select, and then over in the top right, you have these quick transform tools. I'd encourage you to look into each one of these and see what they do, but we're mainly going to just be working with these align buttons right here. So this is pretty straightforward. You can see these vertices in a horizontal line and vertices in a vertical line. Because we selected these all in a vertical row, we're going to align them vertically. And as you can see, that straightened all of that out. We'll do the same with this other side by box selecting it and pressing that align vertically button again. Now everything's flattened, it's nice and straight, and what we can do is we can use this UV checker to kind of build out our UV map. You can move everything by selecting everything, and as long as you're grabbing something, we can move over to face view here. As long as you're hovering over something that is selected, such as a face or a vertice, you can move it around. One important control to know is that if you hold shift while moving, it will move only in one direction, snapping to that axis. So you can move it horizontally, or you can move it vertically. This is the same for scale. So if you were not to press shift while scaling, it scales it uniformly. And you can use shift to scale horizontally or vertically along an axis. So let's scale this down so it roughly corresponds to some of these lines on our UV checker. And you can select some vertices to make sure that it's aligned. Make sure that you're hovering over the vertices and in move mode, and you can hold shift and make sure that it aligns to these lines on this chart here. I'll give everyone a little bit of time to catch up in case they're following along. All right. So let's take a look at what we've got here. Now that we have this unwrapped, all these squares should correspond on this UV checker, so you can look around and see how this kind of unwrapped. So you can see all of our boxes match up here, and you have our codes right in the middle. How this appears really depends on how you unwrap this, so you want to make sure that you think about how you're unwrapping it when you do unwrap it. Let's see a different method on unwrapping this cube so that we can get all of these letters to be straight and aligned vertically. So one of the simple ways to do this is having all of these. We can use our Control B keybind to break each of these individually. So I'm just clicking and pressing Control B. Now they are all separate, basically pages. And so then what you can do is select it, and we can go over to this rotate tool. And just as with the move and the scale tool, you can snap rotate by holding shift. And so you can rotate your squares around perfectly. So I'm going to flip this one 90 degrees. And as you can see, C5 is now the proper way up. We have D4 over here. We can find that on our sheet. Click that, and that can be flipped around. And C3 as well. And now, as you can see, everything is nice and perfect, at least as a horizontal unwrapping goes with this box. All right, so that's it for the basic unwrap of the cube. Next, I'm just going to go over to this plane. We can put an unwrap modifier on this plane. And we can do more of a review on breaking and welding some of these lines. So you can basically select a multiple of these. And when you press Control B to break it, it's basically cutting this plane into two different sheets, as you can see here. Just kind of a reiteration of this breaking and welding concept. And then you can go in selectively and weld these vertices together. Or it should be working. It works a little bit better in the actual view. If you click and press Control W, then you can basically see visually where your welds are going through. One thing you'll notice when unwrapping is now if I try to move this entire segment with element UV toggle, it considers it as one sheet because they're welded together. If I were to select all of these faces and move them, you'll see that some weird stretching happens. So we can go back and selectively use our break tool to fix this. First of all is this vertice that mysteriously disconnected. We can press Control B to break it off, which is creating some weirdness. Very weird. And so you can basically try to repair it from here. What the flip? But you kind of understand what I'm getting at. I don't know why this broke so badly. Next, we'll move on to a cylinder and how this could be unwrapped. So So if we put a UV unwrap modifier on this, we can look at our texture checker and see how this is currently unwrapped. One thing you might want to consider is pressing F2 in order to switch off shaded faces so that you can easily see your checker a little bit better. So the way this is unwrapped right now, it kind of works horizontally, but the vertical caps are all messed up. So let's do what we did with the cube, and let's weld selected subobject like we did before by turning up our threshold and clicking weld selected subobject. That created some more weirdness here, but we can fix that. Next, what we'll do is select both of our caps, so I can press F2 to turn on the visualization of the selection again. Select this cap and select this cap. So now we have both of them selected. I can press Control B to detach them, and it's quite difficult to move with the move tool, so sometimes you might want to use the freeform mode because it gives you a little bit of a better gizmo here, so you can move them out of the way. So let's continue with fixing these. You can use peel once again, turn off pack and detach, and you can press reset peel, and it'll flatten them real nice. There's two ways that you can go about texturing these, and it depends really on what you're looking for when you're texturing. If you don't mind whether the top and the bottom look exactly the same, then you can overlay these two, rotate a bit so it matches up, and then just like what we did with the box, you could go vertice to vertice and use this align in order to make sure that they are like perfectly together. But in a lot of cases, you'll want separate looks for the top and the bottom. Like if you have grunge on the bottom and you have the top have like kind of a lid that you can open, for example, like if you're making a soda can. So we'll keep these to the side, and then we'll figure out this part now. So just like before, you can use the hotkeys to select two edges where you'll kind of make the cut in order to put this into a long strip. And you can press Control B. Next, I'm going to select all of these faces. Just like I was saying before, this select by backface is on, so I'm going to click this off. That way I can select everything without it being called. Next, just like before, we're going to go to our best friend Reset Peel and click this, and it'll straighten everything out real nicely. One useful thing, if you want to straighten this out so the rotation is straight, I'm praying that this works. If you go to Edge and select just one of these edges, you can press this quick transform, align to edge, and then sometimes it does a bad job, but it should roughly rotate this to where you would desire it. But you might want to go in after the fact with the rotate tool and fix this yourself. Awesome. So now we'll figure out how to make sure that this is unwrapped properly so that it has good texel density. So just a brief explanation of what texel density is. It's basically the resolution of your texture as it actually appears in 3D space. So I'm just going to stretch this out a lot. So right now, because this checker is so small, the texel density is really high on the side of the cylinder, while for the caps, it is much bigger. So the texel density is lower or worse. What we're looking for is the same texel density so that the resolution doesn't appear off and jarring when we actually texture this object. So for example, if we were to have this be extremely small like this, you can see these individual pixels, while over here everything is really clear. So I hope that makes you understand texel density a little bit. So what we'll do is we'll just use the move and the rotate tool to get this on a nice spot so that we can extract the highest tensile density without having too much variation between these UV islands. So you can zoom out and kind of see how your texture checker is interacting with your UVs. So I'd say roughly here, and they're about the same size. So there we have it. Our cylinder is unwrapped nicely. All right, next we're going to go on to some more complex objects than primitives. So these may take a lot more effort to unwrap. This is a kind of stylized couch. This will require a lot of manual edge breaking and maybe some welding in case you need to fix some things. So what we'll do is we'll start with this box 1 object. You can press Alt-Q to isolate it so that you can work with only it. And then you can go into Unwrap UVWs. So you can kind of see how this finally will be seamed, but we can reset this and kind of go through at least this one object to see how it can be done. So let's select everything, and using our threshold and turning that up and then welding it together, it is now one UV island. We can go to the top right and turn our texture checker back on and see kind of how this looks. So a little weird. Next, we're basically going to be exclusively using this viewport, the actual scene viewport. We're going to select edge, and what you can do is double click and it will loop select these areas. So you can kind of go in manually, and what you want to do is think about where exactly you'd actually have seams in real life of the fabric stitching together. And you also want to think of your topology as well. One really good guide is when you see these tri-corners, it's usually a good place to kind of split your seams. So we can double click, select these loops, and sometimes it'll stop awkwardly, so you'll have to go around. And now that we have this whole seam selected, we can press Control B and break it, and it's now green. We can flip over to the other side and do the same thing. Again, looking for this tri-corner where you can kind of start, and double clicking and following it to find where it can continue. There we have that. You can break it. This one looped perfectly. You can break this. And the same with the back. And over here as well. And that unwrapped pretty nicely. Now we can go around, check if there's anywhere we've missed. Yeah, right here. Just make sure that all of your seams are going straight to the end, or else your UV islands will still be connected. And then there's also the bottom here. And the bottom here. I'll give just like a little moment in order to get acquainted and get your seams set up. All right. So now what we can do what we've done with the other objects and try this reset peel. We'll turn off pack because we might want to do this ourselves. Have everything selected with polygon mode. Just make sure you have everything, or you can press Control A to select everything. And then we'll press reset peel. And now everything is peeled out. It's all in a big jumble, but if you check around in this view, everything is relatively nicely unwrapped here. One really quick way to get everything arranged nicely is to use this Arrange Elements area. This has different modes, but usually I just use Pack Custom here. You can select whether or not you want it to rescale or rotate objects. I will have it rescale, and I will have it rotate. That way it can fit everything in place really nicely. One important setting here is padding. Right now this is set very, very low. What padding is it'll increase the amount of, it'll increase the gap between your UV shells as it is on the texture. I like to increase this to 0.01 instead of 0.001 because I find if you texture with very low padding, you'll have your pixels bleed into other seams and it won't look very good. And then we'll press pack. And there we go. Next, what you want to do, just kind of look around, make sure you don't have any stray objects. Sometimes you'll find that you might have just some random shells lying out here. It might be on purpose or it might be on accident. You'll want to make sure that you have those connected up. And you can do that by basically going into your view here, making sure that they're welded together. For example, right here. You can just select all 4 of these and press Control W, and it'll connect it. And you might have to reset the peel and pack everything back into place. But yeah, we have everything pretty neat here. It's ready for texturing. And that's pretty much how the rest of this couch goes as well. I'm not going to bother with the rest of it, but I hope you understand how this kind of works. How are we running on time? Okay. Cool. Next, we'll get into how to use texture atlases. So if I go into materials here, I do have a texture atlas. I'm going to post it. Just a minute. If you're in the Discord, it should be in Artist Workshop General. But this will work for any kind of texture atlas that you can find that has gradients on it. I'll drag it into my material editor here. And you can kind of use anything. I just like to use PBR Metal Rough. And you can just drag it into the base color. Again, if you're on the Discord, this is an Artist Workshop General. But if you don't have it, you can just watch, and any gradient map online will do. So I can just assign material to selection, and you can kind of see the final result of what it would look like if it's unwrapped really nicely. So these low poly assets kind of have different gradients and looks for different surfaces. What we'll do is we'll just unwrap this together, and I'll show how this one is unwrapped. So I can apply my unwrap UVWs, and in the top right, we'd usually have the texture checker, as you can see here. But you can also select any map that is currently assigned to this object through the material. So right here I have gradient palette.png, and you can kind of see how this texture looks. So what a texture atlas is typically you'll have overlapping UVs, and you'll basically unwrap it so that the colors fit on however you want it to look. So kind of how I've based this style is anything that is lower is darker, and anything that is higher is going to be lighter. So the way I do this is I go into this view. If you go all the way down, you'll see that there is a projection area. So I can project things onto planar, and what that will do is it'll basically look from above and then take the vertical profile of everything and like pretty much just project it onto this map. If you look horizontally here, you'll see that everything is like in vertical stripes because it's projected from above. Usually what I do in order to get a good height is I just press cylindrical map here, and then I unclick, and it'll be projected so that anything that's higher is up here, and anything that's lower is down here. And so what I can use now is my rotate, or my scale, press shift, and I can squash it really thin, and scale it down. And I can find a color that kind of works. I'll use this as an example because it's really vibrant. And you can use shift and scale to kind of control how much gradient you kind of have, as you can see in the viewport there. I could also have it span different colors if I expand it. And so you can kind of see how it interacts with the texture here. But you can basically like align it to whatever color you want, and it looks very pleasing to the eye. We won't go through this, but I can show how this is kind of unwrapped, and you can look for yourself as well. If you turn on the gradient palette here, you can see I took different UVs, assigned them to different colors, and I have different heights for these objects. So one way, for example, that I did these and got depth for the kind of doors on this is I took the UV shell and I flipped it upside down so that it would look distinct. And I basically just found colors that would work for me and outlaid it onto the texture map. And that's how I got this look. So it's a really quick and easy way to make assets, like low poly assets, look really good. And you also don't really have to worry about your topology too much. So if I press F4 to turn on wireframe, you can see that there's a lot of these weird angles and things that you normally wouldn't really want on a traditional texture. But for this kind of unwrapping, it doesn't matter because just anything that is higher will look darker or lighter anyway. Next, we'll go on to this brilliant computer model. This one was created by Chris Spiteri. And hopefully this isn't already pre-unwrapped because I'd like us to go through it as a group. Unwrap UVW. It is already unwrapped. So you can kind of see how this is unwrapped. We can go through this. If you press Control A, we can weld everything together. And then you'll kind of want to look around your model to see where you might want to place these seams. Usually this will be where smoothing groups end, or like really sharp corners like over here. you'll want to figure out how you're going to do the keyboard. You could either do it by having a planar map on top, planar projection, or you can unwrap each key individually. So let's go into edge mode here. You can double click, it creates a nice loop around here. You can break that. We'll break it here as well. Look at the other side. And for areas here, if you double click, sometimes it won't loop. So you can go over to polygon and just select this entire polygon and break it off without having to select the entire loop. It's a little easier. We have this big dome, cube TV type thing. What we'll do is we'll take a kind of inconspicuous part and get a loop at the bottom here, and that should be the easiest way to unwrap it. We'll make sure that it doesn't follow up along the edge here, and just deselect those vertices. So you can kind of see that that seam runs all the way there. Now I can select these UV shells, and just as we did with the cylinder before, it's kind of the same principle as we have a seam and then we unwrap it to one long strip. So I can use peel and reset the peel here, and it looks like this. What we can do, sometimes it is very buggy, but hopefully this should work. You can straighten the selection, and it worked quite well. We have a straight UV selection here, and if we go to our texture checker, it's kind of like the Mercator projection in a way. Some parts are going to be stretched out more than others. So this is just where you figure out how you want to unwrap it. If we had it unwrapped like it was before, it'll be more even. However, there's going to be some skewed parts. So you'll just want to figure out how you want to texture this. The next part we'll do is just the keyboard over here. You can double click to select the entire element, so we have the keyboard. And we can use these projection tools again. What we'll do this time, we'll do a box map. And that didn't unwrap it very well. Looks like planar is probably the way to go. So you can kind of toy around with these maps, see which works better for your purposes. But I used planar, and then I pressed fit and center. And now you can see that everything is kind of projected vertically like this. So if I look in my UV view, and keep in mind if you have these projections selected, you can't manipulate this while it's in the view. So just make sure you deselect this before, then you can move things around. So you can kind of see all these UVs are outlaid as if you were looking from above. And so you can kind of rotate this and fit it into place in your map. So that looks all right, but we have some stacking. What you can do is isolate your view so you don't have other things distracting you. And I can look from the front, and technically this is the side, but within this max file it's the front view. We'll make sure that ignore back facing is deselected, and then we can select all of these bottom UV parts. We can go back to perspective, make sure that nothing else is awkwardly selected, and then we can break this and move it out of the way. So now we have one shell for this top part that's projected vertically, and then we have this bottom part as well. What we'll do is we'll just use our reset peel, and it can be unwrapped decently enough so that it can be textured. And so now we have our two keyboard parts here. I won't go through the rest of the model because it's quite a lot of time to unravel this whole thing, including the spirals, but all of the concepts that you've learned so far should help you in figuring out how to unwrap these. Like you could put a seam along the whole edge and then unwrap it like it's a cylinder. The last thing we'll go to is kind of our final area here, which is this dog. This can be unwrapped in the same way that we unwrapped the couch and this TV, where you kind of find areas that would seam really nicely and unwrap the dog as if he was kind of like a plushie. You just think of where the seams would actually be in real life. So we can select Unwrap UVW. And one nice thing is the eyeballs are already separate elements, so you can actually double click them. And if you look inside your UV editor, they can already be moved out. So this is the easiest part. We can reset peel, and they're unwrapped perfectly. Let's open our texture checkers so that it's easier to see. Next part, I'd say a central seam that kind of goes under is the best because it's the least visible. And you can see it kind of divides him into two parts. We can use our ignore back facing and deselect all of the top parts here. And keep in mind there is some geometry inside of the mouth as well that you'll want to make sure that you're not selecting. We'll think about the mouth while we're here. We can deselect down to here, break it, and then you can kind of try to see where you can trace around to the mouth where it would be textured. So you can just manually select each of these seams. And press B to break them. So right now what we have is we have one large sheet that's the entire dog, and then one smaller sheet that is the mouth. What we can do is we can test this out and see what it looks like. So we'll select our whole dog in this view with face selection, and we'll press our reset peel to see how this turned out. And a lot of what UV unwrapping is, it's a lot of experimentation. So you'll just have to see kind of how it works. Looks like there's a tongue inside here as well. That is hard to see. And then we have the mouth here. So this is what the interior kind of looks like. We'll ignore the mouth pieces because we can't see them right now. But if you do have animation, you'll want to probably open up the mouth with bones and take a look inside and see how it is unwrapped. So right now you can kind of see that the feet and the legs aren't unwrapped very well. They're like quite bunched up, and if you look at the UV checker in the regular view, it's very stretched out. So what we can do is we can detach all of our limbs here by kind of creating our seams. And making it line up. So it really depends on how you model it. And you kind of have to look at where this lines up. You'll have to deselect certain seams and select others. Seems like the best way to go is up the middle here and then across. And so we can basically cut this whole end off. From here, again, take an inconspicuous area such as the inner parts, and just like we'd unwrap a cylinder, you can put a seam down here. Some difficult parts can be the ends, or like the feet, but we'll just go to the bottom here and see how this chunk unwraps. And so we can select this whole thing, go down to our reset peel and see how that unwraps. So pretty decent. We'll just want to make sure there's not too much stretching or areas or pixels just will look bad once we texture it. And to be honest, this is probably satisfactory enough. This is how all of the other legs would go. Basically, you just find where all these seams would kind of line up. Just kind of think ahead, and you just cut it as if you were like making a plushie, essentially. And then certain areas you might want to like weld together, such as back here with the tail. You can select all of these vertices. Oh, seems to be some odd geometry. They're actually like split. But yeah, that's pretty much how you'd go about unwrapping a organic object. Let me see here. Yes, so that is it for the UV unwrapping portion. Is there any big questions? You can shoot them in the Discord real quick, or you can say in the YouTube chat, and I can answer any UV questions quite quickly. Or if you are in person, you can ask now. Alright, so we'll be passing over to that.
All right. Just give me a second to get myself all sorted out here. Yeah, actually, that'd be nice. Thank you. If you could give me one. Okay. Let's get set up here. Hope everyone enjoyed that first part of the workshop. If we can get some clap hands, hearts, any sort of emojis in the YouTube chat, especially, or the Discord for Dante. It was very kind of him to walk us through that much about UVs. We're about to start the Substance Painter portion of today. So if you are in the Discord, make sure you grab the Google Drive file that was sent earlier today. And I'll also hand it out in the chat here for replay. Yeah, there we go. Where's the stream? Okay, yeah. So just download those files. If you're going to be following along at home for the substance portion of this workshop. And we'll get started in just a sec. My download's still finishing. And again, if there's any questions that you guys have while I go, I'll be checking the Discord chat, I'll be checking the YouTube chat, and we'll be making some beautiful models together. Man, I'd love if this was like faster than 2 seconds an hour. 2 seconds an hour, 2 kilobytes an hour. Alright, I'm just going to wait for all the rest of the assets to download. It's taking forever for some reason, so just bear with me. But we can get started. So, we're going to be texturing 2 things together today. We're going to be doing the computer model that you saw in the UV unwrapping portion. And we're also going to be doing a little couch, and we're going to be doing two styles of surfacing today. The computer is going to be a very worn, stylized type model, and the couch is going to be fully cartoon, completely stylized, and very NPR or non-photorealistic, as they say in industry. So let's get started with a new Substance document. The template doesn't matter since we're just going to be working in Substance for today, but go ahead and find your computer Substance workshop.fbx there. All the default settings are fine. Auto unwrap doesn't really matter. If you have it ticked on, it's fine. Just make sure that generate only missing data is set for seams. Or you can just take it off. It's already unwrapped for you, so no need to worry about any of that stuff. So let's start off with the computer. There's something I wanted to go over that's the number one biggest thing that you've got to learn when you start doing Substance, and that's this section, baking. Baking is incredibly important for Substance. Essentially, what you're doing is you're giving Substance the ability to draw seams around your model, do a lot of really cool automated effects, and we'll go over what those automated effects look like and what tools there are that exist once you get to baking. We're gonna touch on something today too that's not with your typical bake setup. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that you, the listener, are decently versed in Substance, but I'll try to call out my keybinds as I make them. In case you aren't aware how to navigate, it's pretty simple. You just hold Alt left click to pan around, Alt middle mouse button to pan. This is rotate, pan around, and then it's right click to zoom in and out. One thing we're going to be doing today that you typically, or that I haven't really done in the past a lot, but is a good practice to get into, is baking in a vertex color ID map. So what is that? What does that mean? I'll tell you. I'm going to open up the model in Blender here, and we're going to take a look at it together. So same model that we have in Substance, but the one crucial key difference about this that's usually not the case is that it's vertex painted. What I've done is I've gone in ahead of time and I've selected groups of vertices, and you can do this in Blender by pressing L on a selection of your model or a section. This was separated into different pieces, so it's a little bit easier to do that. If you have it all collapsed, you have to manually grab at vertices, but in my case, I just had to press L on stuff and assign it. And what I've done is I've created a map of different colors that correspond to different sections of my material. So I've got this blue section for my screen here. This purple section will make up the main computer cabinet. And I've separated the rest of the PC with a green one because in case I want to do different weathering effects. I've got a keyboard section here, and we've also got these red rubber wires. Typically, when you're doing this, if there's anything that you know you're going to want to have be the same material, so for example, in this case, the wires, you're going to want to color them the exact same color. And also, just to quickly go over how to do that, all you have to do is go into edit mode, select your groups of whatever you want with L, and then head into vertex paint mode. Make sure that you're selecting all the vertices there. They'll be glowing up and lit up white like that if you've got them right there. And then all you have to do is hit Control X to set the vertex color, and that'll make it a new vertex colored mesh that you can put into Substance, and I'll show you how to bake that so that Substance recognizes it. So all you have to do when you're in your baking tab here is go down to the ID map, the identification map, and make sure that if you did the vertex color method, that vertex color is checked off, and then you're going to go back to your main common settings. Make sure that you use low poly mesh as high poly mesh ticked on. That's very important for this one today. And you're just going to click Bake Selected Textures. So great. Now we're all set up and ready to go. And we'll see that, yep, our ID map transferred over just fine, and this whole model is broken up into chunks of color. So let's get started on surfacing. We're going to be going over a variety of different techniques on how to get different effects and stuff on our model, and I'll do my best to go as slow as possible around those areas. Again, the Discord chat is open here, so I'll be available to take your questions. A YouTube chat as well. So let's get started and let's get into it. First thing that we're going to surface on this model is the screen. So before I get into actually doing sections, what I like to do is I like to break up my individual elements, since everything's on the same texture sheet, into folders. And the reason I do that is because I'm going to be making a lot of layers that are going to correspond to just specific parts of the model. So the first thing we're going to do is start with the base kind of texture for the screen. So I'm going to take a new fill layer. I'm going to change the color to something weird, something very contrasty, and then add a black mask. Now, there's a variety of ways that we could isolate the screen here, but because of the way that this is unwrapped, if you press 4 on your keyboard, you can go into this polygon fill mode, and then you can click this kind of checkered texture to select per UV island what you want to mask out, which is super cool. Also, a little quick tip, if you press X while you're in any section of substance, whether that be painting, masking, etc., it's going to change your color value from 0 to 1. It's going to invert it, which is pretty cool. So all we want to do for now is just the basic screen, and we'll rename the layer to correspond to that. And now we know, okay, the whole model is fine. We just have this big red blob where we're going to start our work. So let's first go ahead and change the color to a green. And if you're following along at home, I think what you'll be able to do is click on the little eyedropper. You can actually come in the stream and grab my base color from here, which is pretty cool. So I'll lift this up. Feel free to do that. We're going to go and take our roughness and dial it back a bit to add some reflection to the world. We don't really need height right now. And metallic, yeah, metallic's okay. We don't really need that either. So you can just give it the color and the roughness for now. That's all we're going to need for the basic layer of what the screen should look like. Now, let's add a little bit more detail to this. Let's do something with text. So if you haven't used a font asset in Substance Painter before, this is going to be a bit of an interesting part. First, what we're going to have to do is actually enable emission in our texture set settings. So this set of variables here controls all of the channels you have access to whenever you work on a material in your typical properties panel here. So what we're going to be doing is clicking a plus here, and then clicking on emissive, and you'll now have access to a separate emissive channel that exists within all of your materials now. And you can also export an emissive channel to go along with that. So we're going to go ahead and make a new fill layer. We're going to call it text. And we are going to change it so it's just an emissive. And we'll make it a green. And then we're going to add a black mask to that. And then we are going to add in our text to the mask. So let's pick a font here. I'm going to go with, let's see, ooh, this is cool, Jura. Let's do that. So plop that in the mask here. And we're going to look at our text over here. So this is a very common thing that happens whenever you add something new from a texture or a font asset into Substance into your scene, is that it's going to project all over the model. Very simple fix. All you'll want to do, where it says UV wrap over here, repeat, just hit none, and you can isolate that back out. And then we're going to take our text, we're going to place it on our screen in our 2D UV view, and it's going to reflect in the main viewport here. Just straighten that out. Then we're going to go into our text options by hitting on this little fill bucket that has our font name, and we can give it a little name. Let's do Taffy. I actually had something that was formatted earlier that I want to use. Yeah. Let's do a little computer command. Awesome. And then we're going to scale that down a little bit. Place that in there. And we're going to want to put this under our screen here and set this to multiply. All right. Looking pretty good. This is a pretty old monitor, pretty old CRT, so I want to find a way to take this font that I just added, and kind of mix it up and give it a little bit of a pixelated look. And a way that I can do that is through this black mask. I can grab a brick generator right in here from my library. This one comes stock with substance, and I can drag it into my mask here, and it's going to do a big bunch of stuff there. All you have to do is set that to multiply to fix that, and you're going to have to set a resolution. So let's try 50 by 50 on the bricks X and Y, and let's also change it so that the offset is off. 50 by 50, I don't think that's working out too well. Let's try 100. Oops, that was 1,000. Let's try 100 by 100. Still too little. Let's try 200 maybe? Keep going up by hundreds. Eventually you'll get the right look that you want. Let's just jump all the way to 500. There we go. So now you can see there's kind of a dot matrix pixel effect on the actual lettering here, which gives your composition a little bit more depth and makes it look a little bit cooler. So that's a cool way to do text under a screen and have it kind of show up with that dot matrix look. And this screen is a little bit too pristine. We're going to want to find a way to kind of bring a little bit more realism in here. So let's add a new fill layer. We're going to call this one Screen Dirt. And we're going to give it a black mask. And on that black mask, we are going to mask out. Put this to red so we can make sure. We're going to mask out. There we go. Our main screen. So let's take this color and let's make it a little bit of a gray. All right, let's talk about procedural weathering. This is a very, very big part of Substance that's really going to amplify the stuff that you're going to be able to do as a game artist. I'm just going to quickly check any questions in Discord or in the YouTube. No, we're good. Okay, I'll keep going. So I have here just a basic gray fill layer, regular settings, nothing special about it. And I am going to use this black mask to generate a big amount of wear that then we can then control globally using this fill layer. I'll show you what I mean by that. Substance is really great in that it comes with a ton of grunges. There's like a lot of these. So you can look through this library here and pick your favorite. I am today going to be going with one of my favorite ones, B&W Spots 3. We're just gonna throw that down in here and change this to a subtract so that it clips to where our mask is. And then we can bring the contrast up so you can really see what I'm doing here. I've added this procedural texture that we can dial in and animate around and find the thing that's going to make us the happiest. So before we move on, I'm actually going to go back to my fill layer and set up my material here. We want something that kind of resembles dust, grime, fingerprints. So let's try, let's see. We don't want something like too shiny, so we'll go back in here a little bit. You can add height if you so choose, and you can really make it pop out, or just add a subtle detail of it. This looks more like a paint on here, but that is because we have not done the linear dodge, so that it inherits the colors of the stuff under it. All right, this is a good start. Yeah, this is okay for now. Let's add some more grunge to it. I'm gonna search for fingerprints. Let's see if we got any good fingerprints. Ooh, all right. Should we do smeared or should we do dusty, Dante? Let's do smeared. Okay, we're doing smeared. Put that smear inside your mask there. Drag it over top, and then what you're gonna do is drag it under your other ones so that we have a base of a mask here, and we'll hit multiply so that it limits it just to the extent of our mask. You can kind of see what that looks like there. This works different than this B&W Spots texture. This one is fully procedural, so you can change contrast, balance, all that stuff on the fly, whereas this grunge map is a static, basically just like a texture. So what we're going to do in our editor here, our 2D editor, is scale it down so that it more appropriately fits our monitor. And that's already looking pretty good there. I'd go back in here, maybe touch up the roughness a bit. And then now that we have these two materials together, and we have our base coat here of our grunge fingerprints and our B&W spots up here as a subtract, when we turn on this B&W spots, it's actually going to eat into the texture under it, and give us this really cool, almost smart material of our own to add our own procedural grunge to the scene. And we can also change stuff like how the B&W spots texture will scale. We can take the tiling down on it, we can make it go bigger, and you can kind of see how each of those individual controls can amount to something a little bit more interesting. I'm going to turn the contrast down because grunge like this is typically never exactly like that, and we'll just scale this. Should we scale? Let's scale this a little bit. And just play with the positioning, and you'll notice that the fingerprint texture is staying static while the B&W spots is just cutting out dynamically. So that's looking okay. I'm also going to add a little, I think it's, I want to add a little bit of a texture of a wipe. Here we go, this brush circular. And I'm going to just grab that, put that on here as a mask, and hit it with that subtract so it takes away from everything under it. And then we're going to turn off that UV tiling and move this decal into the middle of the screen so we have a kind of effect of someone having wiped off some of the grime and grunge. Just a bit. So someone's been using this computer, but it's dusty and gross. Okay, that's not looking too bad. Let's just make sure that we're happy with how this material here looks on the actual grunge. We can probably just turn the height off for that. It's mostly roughness when it comes to things like this on top of glass, so you're going to want to give it that frosted over look by really playing with those dials in there. And metallic doesn't matter too much, so we might as well just disable it. It's just, in general, good practice to disable anything that you're not rocking with. It leads to less confusion when you're going down the line and going, I'm editing these roughness values, why isn't it working? So always good practice to worry about that. So our screen is looking good. Let's move on. Let's do a quick one. We're actually just going to quickly slap a material on. I'll show you how to use those ID masks. We're going to look for a rubber material, and we're going to be texturing our little wires here. So all I'm going to do is grab this rubber texture. Let's use rubber dry. And then I'm going to hold control as I'm dragging over, and you're going to see that ID mask that we baked in earlier is there. And I'm just going to plop it on this little red wire one, and you'll notice that it'll automatically fill in that wire and the wire on the back. It looks pretty decent. There's really not much else we have to do there, so we can kind of just leave those there and rename that to wires. Awesome. Let's look at doing some of the plastics. So let's make a new folder. Let's call it PC Plastics. And let's look for a good plastic material in our libraries here. Looking for something that has that like old PC look. Plastic used soft might do well. Let's try that. So I'm holding control and I'm going to assign it to this purple part of the monitor here, and that's actually given us quite a nice result already. Just for the base there, I'm going to quickly, actually I made a new folder anyway, so I might as well just delete that other one. I'm going to change the base of this so it looks a bit more like a PC from the time, but still yellowed out and gross. So let's make that a bit more yellow. Yeah, it's not giving me the results I want. Hold on. This is like my number one thing, picking the right color. It sucks, it's rough. Alright. Looking pretty decent. Let's go ahead and add in some seams so that we can kind of see a little bit of extra detail that'll outline the edges of the monitor. So I'll just go in with a new fill layer and move it up all the way at the top of our hierarchy in here, and we'll call this one seams. So we're getting to our first generator of the course. So what I want you to do is on that new fill layer, add a new black mask, and go ahead and hit Add Generator. And what a generator is essentially one of those procedural textures that we used before, the B and W spots, but but applied with some math and some things that make it more convenient for you as an artist to add some effects just pretty much procedurally. So for this one, I want an effect that goes along all my seams and draws on them. So I'm going to look for my UV border distance generator, click that. And we're already getting this kind of white outline on our sides here. Let's bring the contrast up so we really get that in, dial in that balance so that we get a nice representation of where those seams are going to go. And we're going to head in here. We're going to make these fully black. And we're going to take the height and take it down a little bit. You're going to see what this effect does in a sec. But essentially what we're doing is we're creating a fake seam on the monitor that's going to give you some detail that looks like it's polygons, but is really just part of the texture. This is like one of those kind of more magic moments about 3D magic things about it. So fully black that out, make that look nice and pretty, and then take away your emissive channel there. And maybe play with that black value a little bit, get it to like a nice balance there. And then you're going to want to play with your other controls here just to fine tune in exactly what you want. So dial all those settings in, play with that as much as you like, but we've got a pretty nice kind of seam pattern running around through where our UV islands connect. And you'll see it's just applying it to the edges of our UV borders here in the 2D view, which is super, super cool. All right, let's continue on. So we got our seams in the screen of the computer. What comes next? We're going to have to, oh yeah, grunge it up. We're going to have to make it all gross and gnarly. So we have a pretty perfect plastic shell right now. What we're going to do is add some extra texture to it that's going to really, really grunge it up, make it look gross and gnarly. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to take a look at our dirt mask here. So these smart materials come with a lot of these generators pre-applied. That's what makes them the smart materials, that you can go in and play with all these sliders and stuff. We're just going to kind of walk around in here and just look around, see what looks good at tweaking, and really dial it in for the effects that we'll want. I think I'm just looking at my notes from some stuff I did earlier on the other screen here. Oh, this is a great one, actually. So I really don't like how this is all uninterrupted. There's no variance in the color, because if we're gonna go for this aged look, there has to be like almost sections of the computer that need to look different or weird or malformed in some way. So we're gonna go ahead and take this Fur 2 texture and apply that on top of the base here as a base color mask. And then we're going to take that mask, use the subtract function so we get all these like weird streaks going through that darken it. And then we're going to take it and play with the tiling so we get a little bit of extra texture on it. And then we're also going to go and we're going to use one of my all-time favorite nodes. It's the blur slope. This is a really, really powerful node. The whole blur family in Substance of filters is really powerful, but this one's great at giving you really fast stylized edges and blotching, which I'm going to show you now. So we're going to take that, throw that on top of here, and then change this to a linear dodge, so we're adding to the color. And if we just drag up the intensity, you can kind of see on the edges here that the definition of those stripes goes away and it gets replaced by these kind of blotchy, almost watercolor looking lines. So that's a really powerful tool that you can use to add a lot of quick wear and variation to things, and to stylize some things and make it look different or non-traditional. let's just make that look right. Yeah, it's okay for the time being. All right. Let's look at the edges here. So by default, it looks like this one uses a curvature mask. Yeah, you can kind of see the highlight on the side here. Maybe if I go into base color mode, it'll be more apparent. But you can kind of see that turning on and off. I'm going to change this one. I'm just going to change this generator from curvature to a very powerful one called metal edgeware. You can use this specific generator in so many circumstances. It really is just like the one-stop shop for making nice looking wear. Um, and I'm also going to go in and darken the color of it a little bit on these edges and see if we can get the effect. There it is. Okay. Let's see if we invert it. That'll make it a little bit easier. There we go. So let's drag that up. Already given us some nice stuff. Let's do, let's make this a little bit grosser. Go like that, and then maybe we'll hit this with a multiply so you get that kind of like blotching, dirty, nasty stuff. Let's play with the roughness here. Make that fully rough. And maybe we'll give it a little bit of height detail too, just to break up that perfect body. Alright, looking good. Let's play with that metal edgeware a little bit, change the scale so it's a bit more appropriate to what the size of our model. That's a lot better. And let's play with this wear level so we can really dial in exactly the look that we want. Okay. Then I'm going to go in here and maybe change this up a little bit. Yeah. Well, let's get some mud on this. We'll just imagine that this was like on a farm somewhere, and they dumped it in the mud at one point. So yeah, someone here is not taking care of their PC, but that's okay. All right. If you downloaded that package, you might have noticed that it came with a variety of textures and little stickery things, etc. We're going to go and open those now so you can open up that package. And we're going to grab one of the models from it. So what you want to do, if we're going to add a custom texture here and insert it onto the model to give it some more detail. I've already made this for you. All you have to do is go to File, Import Resources, Add Resources, and then we're going to go to the Drive Download Archive and grab label.png. Make sure you change this from undefined texture so that Substance knows it's a texture and gives it all the appropriate presets. And then you can choose where to import it. You can do it to the current session, to this project. Right now it's just called Unity HD Render Pipeline because I haven't saved it as whatever, but it could also show up as computer if you've already saved it, or library your assets. If this is your local machine and this is the one that you're using the most with Substance, that'll save it so that it applies to all your projects. But right now we're just going to do it inside this project, and we're going to import. Okay, let's go in now and grab this and apply it on a base color channel, and we'll straighten it out. Where did it go on here? There you are. You can use WASD on here to edit the label. 1 second, I'm gonna redo that. There we go. Or you don't, or I'm an idiot. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you have to hit the manipulator up there if you ever lose it. And then W is to move it around. E is to rotate around whatever axis you want, and then R is to scale. Pretty standard stuff. We're gonna take this decal and we're gonna apply it to the back of the machine. And these arrows are going to show where we're projecting this, so let's put it facing downwards. and get that label sitting on there, looking nice. Looking good. And then we are going to go in. Let's add a black mask to that. And we're also on here going to add a anchor point. So an anchor point, for those who do not know, is it's basically a little portal. Wherever you draw on your model, if there's an anchor point on that layer, it's going to save where you've drawn and then transfer that to wherever you set it up. So in this case, for this sticker thing, we're going to set it up in here on a fill layer on the actual mask itself. So right click and add a fill. And then on this grayscale, you're going to hit anchor points and then sticker. And then for alpha behavior, you're going to, I believe it's extract alpha, yeah, so that it perfectly clips what we're doing to the alphas of this PNG. And I'll show you what I mean by that. If we take this and add a height modifier to it and pull it up, you'll see that since we extracted the alpha, if we kept the alpha and it was the original, it would use the sticker itself as the alpha texture, which is not what we want. But when we hit extract alpha, it'll grab the edges of the sticker and then allow us to put some effects on it, like this height here, that's going to make it look a little bit more 3D. And then we can also add maybe this one of those metallic stickers from back then, play with the roughness a little bit. Doesn't have to be like fully chrome, but you can add a little bit of shine to that right there. Looking good. And then on top of all that, we're also going to need to add a little bit of wear. So go ahead and open a paint layer, right click and add a paint layer. And we're going to go on into our settings here and just search for dirt in the brushes section. You can use whatever one you like. I use these the most when I'm adding wear to things, and I'll show you what I mean by that. If I go into this paint layer here and I start painting and I multiply maybe. There we go. I had to press X. If I'm painting in black over top of the sticker on the edges, it'll obliterate it in an interesting way that kind of looks realistic if we play with the height so that it looks a bit, there we go, a lot better there. And we can really soften out the edges on here. We can change which one we're using and give it those kind of like lines of character through the model. When you're texturing, the really important thing to remember is you're telling a story about the object that you're doing. So in our case, we're obviously I'm doing a very dirty, grunged up computer. So the people who are looking at this have to kind of imagine what happened to it. So it never hurts to add a little bit of extra character by manually going in and doing the art aspect of messing with your textures, your own self, and trying out some new stuff. Adding little bits of wear and tear in there. But good. That looks okay. We're going to revisit this technique to make these stickers a little bit further down the line. Because it's a really useful tool that you can use in a lot of scenarios, especially when you're working with texturing realistic objects. Okay, I think I've decided for my plastic here that I want to also apply it to these channels here. So I think that's as simple as, no, I gotta do a paint. There we go. Adding a paint layer and then clicking on, using object select for polygon fill and clicking on this separated base computer here. So now we get all those same disgusting grunge and wear and tear bits that were on the other monitor. All right, cool. And we also get that same kind of seam effect, which is interesting. Let's get this label into a separate decals folder. And we're going to revisit this label material here because we're going to be reusing it again a little bit down the line. I just want to quickly go back to my dirt here because I am not the biggest fan of what's going on with this. Where were my edges? Here we go. And I'm going to do a little bit of grunge. I'm going to grab a new grunge texture. Let's see, a concrete dusty looks good. Gonna pop that on here, and then I'm gonna do a subtract. Play with that balance, dial in how much wear I really want on here. Yeah, looks decent. Maybe I'll change my scale on this grunge a little bit. Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. I'm going to add another decal really quickly here. So when we're inside of Substance, there's a lot of tools that will kind of like allow you to add detail to things where they previously didn't exist. If you're not baking from a high poly mesh onto this, you might want something like a power button here. So I'm just going to go in here and look for a button type thing. Let's go with the circle bump. This one looks good. We're just going to drag that over top here. And there's a variety of ways that we can do this one specifically. I think what I'm going to do is set it up as a normal. Get rid of that fill layer maybe. There we go. And let's also add a paint layer to this. Oops. Not what I wanted to do. I wanted to play with the height. Let's punch this out a little bit. I don't know if anything's actually showing up there. Sorry, give me a sec here. There's a very definite proper way to do these types of things. It's just escaping my mind right now, but we can just leave that button there. Whenever it pops back in my head how to do that, we'll go back to that section. Okay, let's quickly apply some extra. Let's put some more wear on this to give it some dust over top of the kind of dirt and stuff that we have going. So I'm just going to go back to my dirt, my edges. Yeah, there it is. I'm just going to change the color so it's a little bit lighter. And I'll add an ambient occlusion. So this is really just adding some basic shadows over top of the model. We're going to use this ambient occlusion generator to get all of the AO data that exists on the model. Hit it with the invert. And let's get, there we go, some more exaggerated wear there. Play the contrast a little bit. There we go. You can really see that visual shadow of the monitor now. And you can also dial it up if you want to darken your corners or do kind of whatever with your model here. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good for the time being. Let's move on to the keyboard. I'm not going to do anything super crazy with the keyboard just because we don't really need to sit here while I paint in every key. But we are going to quickly add a plastic to it. Let's go. What plastic are you feeling, Dante?
I think probably like kind of off-white keyboard would fit very well.
Okay. Let's do plastic dusty. And then we'll hold control and drop that over our keyboard here. Okay, this isn't really giving me the exact effect that I want, but that's okay. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this. Let's just get a little bit of a darkened off-white in there, maybe a little bit more of a yellow there, and then desaturate that. There we go. Now that's looking awesome. And we're actually going to go in. Let's go ahead and add some gray keys. And we're going to go in with our polygon fill mode here, and we're just going to select, there we go. I'm going to select some individual faces to fill with a darker color. So let's do like this whole cluster up top here. You can just drag a box over it and finish up your selection with everything in there. If these keys were individual meshes, you could just use the object select to get it, and it would be quite alright, but this is a collapsed object, so it's a little bit trickier, but that's what it's all about. It's about the patience. Gotta click everything. Cool. Let's also do these other couple keys up here, just for good measure. Looking good, and then we'll just darken this with a bit of a darker gray, just like that. And we'll turn off all of these channels. We'll just need the color to overlay on top. And let's see, multiply gives us a good result. Yeah, it's okay. I'm not really digging it that much though. And then over top of that, let's make sure the dust is applied. Although this dust, I would like to change it a little bit. Let's see here. What would be really good to get going on here are some fingerprints. So fingerprints, in essence, all of these techniques are pretty much the same. Create a fill layer and add a black mask. But it's really the best way to kind of tackle working in Substance Painter, because you'll want that level of customization once you've drawn on whatever your patterns are. So when I'm going in here to the mask to, see, draw with my brush here and my fingerprint brush, I'll just quickly change it to red so that we can clearly see it. There we go. Get some fingerprints scattered about on these keys. All right, looking pretty good. Let's turn those into little oily things by going back here to our fingerprints, changing the material to a little bit of a gray there, and then we'll make sure that the roughness is turned off like that, and then metallic all the way up. Gives it a nice kind of worn in look. Then we can multiply it and play with the balances again so that we know exactly the look that we're going for. Just dial in that metallic, dial in that roughness. These blending modes, again, are also really, really powerful. Make sure that you take advantage of those. If you come from Photoshop, you're going to already know kind of how to use those, but they're really important in Substance. They're what allow you to kind of go through all these effects and overlays, so do your best to kind of get familiarized with it. Yeah, we're just going to be Multiply. Multiply is the most basic one that I use the most. Okay. All that's pretty much left is some additional wear work that we're going to do together. And then we're going to go through and add some stickers to this PC. So let's collapse that folder and we're going to make a custom wear folder. And I'm also going to move my decals above this plastic dusty here. All right, so in here, let's add some dust. Let's just quickly start with that one. So I'm just going to grab that color there. And then I'm going to go and add a black mask with a generator. And I'm going to look for the ambient occlusion. And we're going to play again with these balances and blurs. See what we see here. It's kind of giving me interesting results just through that. AO isn't always the best, one to use, but it's typically pretty decent. And then let's also add a mask. Yeah, let's do another generator. And let's look for, let's try dirt there. Yeah, there we go. That's looking good. And we'll just take this, multiply it, and put it under there. And Where'd it go? Okay, just keep it on normal. That's probably fine. Yeah, that's okay. We'll also just quickly readjust the coloring of this dirt so that it matches up a little bit closer. There we go. Gives it a bit of that orangey brown vibe, and we'll play with the roughness so that it looks nice and gross. There we go. Lots of darkness. Very, very cool. Alright, cool. So that's some basic dust. Let's put that in the wear there. We did some seams. We could do some extra dirt over top everything, I think. Just one more coat. It never hurts to just kind of keep slapping these on. But this is more of a general body dirt that's going to go over everything. So we'll do a little black mask and we'll grab that color there. We're going to do three things. We're going to add a paint layer to this, and then we're going to add a B&W spots. It could be, we'll do B&W spots 1. And let's get a grunge map of, let's see, which grunge are we using here, Dante? You got to pick, dude, the workshop.
Yeah, that one.
This one?
Sure.
Okay. All right. And then let's get these in the right order here so that we have the paint on top. This should be subtracting from this bottom one here. And we can play around with how gross and dirty that looks over top of everything. It's really getting decrepit and moldy and gross. Actually, let's give it a little bit of height. Ooh, look at that on the screen there. That's pretty cool. We'll make that a bit browner too. It's very muddy. Very nasty. And let's see, multiplying. Yeah, multiply is okay. Metallic is not what we want there. Okay. So we got a PC covered in dirt and grunge and guck. Now we gotta add some personality to it through our decals. So I've left in a bunch of stickers that you can use on your PC inside that drive download folder. So there's like a Half-Life 3, a Pokeball, a ReverX logo, and then some other fun ones. We're just going to go over really quick how to make a sticker material, which we went over it before, but we're going to do it again. And I'm actually going to show you how you can save that material to your library so that you can apply it again with other custom decals. So let's go ahead and import a resource again. We're going to add a resource. And I want to do, let's do the, which sticker should we put in? Which one are you thinking, Dante? Let's do ReverX. We're going to do ReverX. And remember, we're going to want to make this a texture, and we're just going to import it to this project. All right. Let's add a fill layer here. And we are going to add, first of all, we're going to add an anchor point. And we're going to call this sticker AP. We're going to add a black mask to that. And we are going to that black mask, we're going to add a fill, grayscale, anchor points, sticker AP. Make sure you know which one you use because we used it before with a similar name. And we are going to grab this, slot RevRex into the base color here. And then we're going to extract the alpha so that we get a nice view of RevRex. And instead of projecting it over the whole mesh, we're going to first turn off that functionality and scale it down. So, where should we put this? Let's put this on like the side of the monitor, I think. Might be a good place for it. Where am I putting this? There we are. Okay. Let's get that oriented right. Make that smaller. Notice how it's being affected by all the other layers of grunge and stuff. That's because this is right now just a base color add-on, but we're going to go back to this main material here. We're going to add just a touch of height to give it that sticker look. So you can kind of see that there. There's some edges on it now. And let's see if we can get this, not pass through. Let's see if we can get this fully smooth with a blend mode. I don't think we can. Yeah, we can't. Oh yeah.
Because right now the other things are blending. If we change that to normal, it might.
Let's do normal for that too.
There we go. It's working.
So, yeah. Okay. And roughness. Roughness is normal. Metallic. That's normal. That's normal. That's normal. Cool. Oh, this I didn't mention this. This is where you can edit all of your actual like channels within each layer. It's a pretty important tool when you're just like checking, and kind of like almost debugging your materials here, which we're doing with the RevRex logo that's on the side of this right now. Um, but I digress. We'll just keep trucking on here. Let's play with the roughness here. Let's get a bit of a sticker like flair to it. And turn that metallic up. There we go. Get like a bit of a metallic shine on that. Ooh. It's like pearlescent. That's pretty cool. Pearlescent Dirty River X sticker. There we go. And okay, on top of that, we're going to add some extra wear. So we have the basis of our sticker here. Um, these settings, you can kind of preset them to whatever you want. I'm going to say we're going to make this our pearlescent sticker. And let's say you want to carry this forward into another project and use it as something where you can just slot in to the base color a sticker type, and it'll automatically convert it to be kind of whatever sticker you want. All you have to do is right click on the material, and you're going to click on create smart material is grayed out. Yep, that might be it. Oh man, hold on a second, guys. We didn't prepare for this part really well. There we go. Okay, you're gonna put it in a folder, and you're just gonna call it whatever you want. So I'm gonna call this sticker, and then I'm gonna call this sticker. And selecting the folder now, you're gonna right click, and then you're going to click on Create Smart Material, and that's going to automatically put a smart material in your library. And then you can actually change that. So you can export the resource so you can bring it into another substance file, or show it in another thing, or add it to your favorites. Right now it's saved in our smart materials for your assets, so that's a-okay, and we can actually reuse this material down the line to add more stickers. We're kind of running low on time, so we're not going to do that, but this is basically your completed disgusting computer model. um, if you guys have ones, if you followed along throughout this process and you made something, I'd love to see it. If you could send it to the Discord. And if it's something that's different than this kind of worn, grungy look that I've gone for, that's even cooler. I'd love to see that. Let's take a break from the real and do something a little bit unreal, but not like the engine. We're going to go and make a new substance file. We're going to hit this couch FBX, and then same settings as before. Don't worry about any of these. If they're the default, that's fine. Just going to hit OK, and we're going to say goodbye to about an hour of work in Substance Painter. Bye-bye. All right, so we got this cartoony couch that Dante unwrapped in the UV unwrapping portion of the workshop, and we're going to focus on making this a little bit more stylized. So stylized texturing in Substance Painter is actually really, really fun and a lot simpler than you might think. But we're first going to do our most important step by going into our baking tab, making sure our low poly mesh is using our high poly mesh. We're going to bake our mesh maps in so that Substance knows exactly what it's dealing with here, and it can generate us all of our cool little effects. Okay, let's start off with a base color for this. I'm going to go for an NPR style or NPR look in here. So I'm going to be doing most of my work in the base color single channel here. Of course, whatever you're exporting to and whatever rendering engine is your like final destination is going to be dependent on how you'll want to style this in Substance. But let's assume we're going into an unlit environment. It's fully cartoon mode, and we're just going to be playing with colors. This is also going to be a really helpful kind of exercise in understanding how to light different parts of your model really simply using generators. So without any further ado, we're going to start by adding a fill layer, and then we're going to turn off every channel except for base color. I'm going to grab my pre kind of color graded out base. So this is my base color for my couch. And then on top of that, I'm just going to rename it to my base. And then on top of that, I'm going to add a duplicate of this, and this is going to be called highlights. and I'm going to change this texture out to a brighter one. Now I want to separate these textures out and kind of have this highlight one really only affect the parts where light would hit if it was coming from the top. So there's various ways you can do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a black mask and a generator, and we're going to look for the light generator. That kind of adds this ambient lighting effect. Here you go. So this looks like a shaded version of the couch, but you'll notice that we're still in this base color mode. So this is really just kind of illustrating this all for you. And we're going to just make sure that we're all okay with everything that we're seeing here. You can adjust things like highlight and make it really cartoony if you want, change how like glossy things are, etc. I think I'm pretty happy with what this result is giving me right now. So let's leave it as it is. Let's go ahead and add a, let's see. Let's add some details. Let's try that out. So let's add some stitching. This is a really simple way to make stitches in Substance. All you really have to do for this method is take your base color, knock it down to black, add a black mask as you always do, and then we're going to add a new generator with a UV border. So we're creating a seam on all of our meshes here. We're going to dial in that contrast so that it becomes super solid outlines like that, and then take down our balance so that we get a little bit of a faint kind of outline around, looking good. And then we're going to go and we're going to do similar to our text earlier with the computer monitor. We're going to use this brick texture, or this brick generator rather. And we're going to change this. Let's do 10 by 10. Might be a bit too small, but that's okay. And we're just going to take the offset off. And I guess we can, let's try bumping it up to 25 by 25 maybe. And hitting this with a subtract so it actually takes away from what our UV border distance is. Now we have this really cool kind of stitched effect on top of our model. And to change how those stitches appear, all we have to do are change these tiling values. So if you want a more cohesive look, you can do that. I'm kind of a fan of that, where we get these kind of areas where they like taper off and taper back in really loosely. I'm a big fan of that, so I'm going to keep that there. And then we can go back to this border distance and play with the balance so we can see how thick we want it. But I'm actually pretty happy with what it's showing right here, so I think we'll leave it there. Okay, let's go ahead and add some color for the feet down here. So let's call this legs. And I'm going to turn off all my channels and grab my color. And then this one's really simple. We're going to add a black mask, hit 4 on our keyboard. And since these are all individual meshes, all you're going to do is click on them to mask them with this new material here. And then we're going to add another fill layer here, turn off all these. And we're also going to add a black mask to it. And make sure you're selecting and masking out all of those areas. You're not going to see it right now because there's something on top of it, but here you go. As you'll see now, we'll have all of these masked out. Then all I'm going to do on here is add a generator for metal edgeware. And we're going to multiply it so it only affects this channel. And we can get a kind of similar line work effect on here, but we're going to invert it so it shows, it displays as more of a black, and then it fades out to a white there. Gives us that kind of cartoon outline look. Okay, that's all looking pretty good. Let's add some final details, and we'll wrap up from there. So we're going to make a copy of our highlights layer, and we're going to slightly change what that highlight looks like, and then we're going to take away this light generator. What we're going to focus on with this one is painting, and we're going to paint in some details manually, and we're going to kind of offset that by a texture. So what this texture is going to do is it's going to add and give all the stuff that we're painting on it a very unique look. We're going to make this divide by the paint layer. And then once we're in here, if we're painting with just a regular, you'll notice that this edge comes out all frayed, even though the brush that we're using, this basic hard, is just a circle. You kind of get that texture around it. So we're going to continue playing with that. And we'll also play with this a little bit so that we can get exactly the effect we wanted. So subtract, not divide. There we go. So let's add some maybe like seat wear where it would get sat on, or maybe this is a big like grape juice spill. It's kind of funny to think about. Let's do that. So little dribbles all around. And there we go. There's your sofa with a little splotch of purple on it. So, yeah, that pretty much wraps up everything. I'll just quickly run through all the most important things that I touched on shortly in this section of the seminar or workshop, and I'll just quickly give you a run through of everything they do. So, your most important tools, of course, are your fill layers. They are going to be a full fill on your UV channels of everything that you're going to be coloring in with that PBR data of height, roughness, metal, normal, etc. I'll switch back to this regular material. And pretty much on everything, you're going to want to follow this kind of like substance smart material route of adding a black mask to it, and then defining where you stencil that stuff out either by painting directly on the mask here, selecting individual faces or objects, or going in with things like generators, which will allow you to add procedural effects to things like this metal edgeware, for example. There's also, we didn't touch on these, but there's also these things called filters in Substance. That was the slurp, the slope slurp, the slope blur. Sorry, kind of filter that we had there before. But there's also there's a variety of these, and actually ones that mimic things like oil painting, which is pretty cool. So there's a kind of a whole world to explore with these. Um, so those are pretty important. And of course, we also had anchor points, which is what we use for our sticker system, where we have it stencil out, basically provide Substance with a stencil of the image input, and then carry that information over into the mask map, and then apply some procedural logic following that, and all the things that we set up there. Um, and of course, setting it up something to be a smart material, all you have to do again is create a folder, call it whatever you like. We're going to call this one a My Cool Texture. Then we'll take our fill layer with whatever effects we have on it, put it in there, right click, and then create smart material, and it'll get saved as a preset that you can then drag on and apply to any of your models going forward in the future. Final thing that I'd like to touch on before we wrap things up here are Substance Painter libraries. If you're a part of Slugworks this year, we're going to be doing this, and anyone else who is watching, you are more than welcome to give this a try. But this Slugwork Init drive is actually a shared GitHub repository that contains all of these shared assets among Slugworks developers. So we actually have a little library of materials that we kind of put together and that we're using across all of our Substance projects for complete kind of seamlessness and what's the word? Consistency. So if you're watching and you're kind of interested in that aspect of creating modularity and tool sets for your artists, that's definitely a way to do that. It's really just as simple as going into your edit and libraries, and then when there's no project opened, you'll have a little dialog there to add a new library. So that is pretty much going to wrap up our seminar today. I hope you learned something. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to be putting this up as a VOD for the rest of the year, so feel free to share it with your teams respectively if you had other artists that didn't show up today, or if you want to refer back to anything in the video that we talked about today. All right, Dante, is there anything you want to say before we shut her out? Or
It's quite excellent. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dante. It was quite your part was quite excellent too. All right, see you guys later. Bye.